Yep, yep.
You're live.
Good morning. Welcome to the Finance and the Admin Building Committee. Present today are Councilman Clunt and Councilman Clay, and City Attorney Paul Jensen, City Finance Officer Chandra Phillips, and myself. Today looks like our itinerary agenda is going to include budget worksheets and some communications from the City of Winter. I'll turn the floor over to Finance Officer Chandra Phillips.
First off, right before the meeting got started, you guys reminded me that I failed to inform council last night that the medical marijuana facility did renew their license for another year. Everything all the paperwork is in order, payment has been received, and we are good to go on that one. So that one is active for another year in the same location. Budget is going to be the majority of my discussion today. Several different things. Jeremy, you had asked about capital debt and where we are sitting. At the end of 2003, you will be at 63.70.
Hold on, you said 2003.
Yep, that's this year.
2003? 23.
Oh, okay. 2023, sorry.
Makes a difference.
At the end of 2023, you'll be at 63.72% of your total borrowing power. You will have approximately a little over $1 million worth of borrowing power. So that was a question you guys had asked previously.
Do you know what we were in 22 and 21? Right.
In 2019, you were at 100%. In 2020, I believe you were at 90-something. 2021, you were at 80. And then 2022 is 70, a little over 70. It's dropped about 10%-ish each year. The pool loan expires completely, that bond in 2027.
Oh, pool.
Yep, the pool bond. However, with our 3B tax going the way it is, we're still not in a position where we can say we no longer need that bond from the county. We get a $60,000 bond every year from the county. That was something that council had voted on back then. I'm not in a position financially so that 3B can 100% support our payment for the pool bond, so we still need that, but we are getting a little bit excess each year out of 3B, so that in 2026, I'm hopeful that'll be the last year that we need the bond, and that should cover the remaining of our loan.
What is the 3B? About 70,000?
3B it's gone up. I think it's 140 that we receive each year. Last year we received 151, year before that 139. So this year, it's all over the board, but we did plug in 140,000 this year for 2024. Our payment is pretty steep on that one, which is okay. We have a really good interest rate on it because we refinanced it back in 2014, I believe, or 2015, and got a much lower interest rate.
What's 3B bind us to? Capital improvements, is it?
Economic development.
Economic
Yep.
development.
So you have to use it towards something that will develop the growth of your community. A lot of times parks, pools, your actual economic development district, your chamber, those are things that qualify for that. Community centers, they qualify for it. Just saying.
So it should get paid off in 2027.
Yes.
So 2028, we would be looking for new.
2027, you will no longer ask for the bond from the county, so that will be gone. And then if there is any remaining payment left on the pool bond, then you would still have to figure out what to do with the remainder of your 3B. Whether you give that gift that out for economic development, or you have another project, a park project, something like that, you could do that too. It does not have to go towards loan payments. You can use it to fund specific items. So,
Okay, well, that's 5 years away.
yes. So 2027.
We still have a payment due in 2027, so 2028 would be free, where we decide where we're gonna
Yeah.
spend it on. Potato, potato, how you wanna look at it.
For the community, 3B, most people know what this is, but Jeremy, you like to use these meetings as informational. So just for the public's information, 3B is based off of bed, booze, and board. So it's prepared foods, alcohol sales, and hotel motels. So all of those have to pay that extra 1% tax into the state. Right now, if you are in city limits, you're paying 7.5% tax on any of those items. Starting July 1st, you will pay 7.2% on any of those items. As of July 1st, the sales tax for South Dakota goes down to 4.2. The city of Winter has a 2% sales tax, and then also the 3B on top of that. Any questions on that? We do have one other loan that's being paid off in 2024, and that is for the big orange truck that got stole last year. It's paid off next year. Thankfully, we have it back, but it is paid off in 2024, so that'll be our final payment on that dump truck.
What's that yearly payment?
I believe it is 23, or let me look. I have it plugged in. $30,616.44 for principal, and the interest is $1,234.05.
Was that a four-year loan?
5. We got it in 2019. And it's not a lease, it is an actual loan through Kansas State Bank, so we own it at the end of that with no additional payment. The rest of them still have quite a few years left on them. The only other one that's super close is the body scanner at the jail. 2025 will be the last year on that one. And there's a couple other leases I think that are up in 2025, 2026, but the main one would be that truck.
Body scanners are monthly, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah.
So quite a few of our leases have gone to monthly payments, the body scanner. A lot of our stuff through Ditch Witch is monthly payments as well, and so we built that in. Our RD and rural development, same thing, RD and SRF. There is one rural development that is a monthly payment, and that's a water one, and then everything else is quarterly on those.
What's the first year we can pay off the jail bond in its entirety?
2024. You have to wait 2025, January 1st, 2025. You have to wait 5 full years, and we took it out in 2019. So 5 full years of payments. So 2025, because it was a December loan, January 1st, 2025. I did receive a District 3 renewal. Obviously, we don't sign that until after the budget is approved, but ultimately it's just a way for us to be able to budget what District 3 would be for next year. And they sent that out, and it is $5,096 an annual renewal with District 3. They help us with our grants. At this point in time with our grants, we notify them, or our engineers notify us, and then we notify them that, hey, this is a grant that we're very interested in. Can you tell us the particulars? What do we need in there in order to get it to go? They are very They were instrumental in the DANR grant that we just applied for sanitation, on letting us know when the deadlines were to get things submitted. They compile all the information I give them and make it look a little bit more professional for us. Obviously, the CDBG grant that we have on the highway project, they helped us with. The Game Fish and Parks grant, they helped us with. Typically, once it's been submitted, then a lot of times, those folks just start contacting me and asking for official reimbursement requests at that point in time. They do not help us with any of our FFA stuff. Helms helps us all with that because Helms is very coordinated with the federal grants on the airport side. They also renew our SAMs for us, our SAMs and our UEI, unique identifier, that we have to have in order to receive grants, and they do that. That's what part of this fee pays for, is for them to do that. Otherwise, it costs money to renew it on your own. So I think they're very instrumental in some of these grants. For 5,096, is that what I said, or 56? I think it's worth it. That's what I had plugged in. Obviously, as we continue to go through the budget, you guys can continue to see if that's a thing that we want to continue with. I did send out letters to all the nonprofits, so we'll be receiving those back in the next couple of weeks, what people are looking for on those nonprofits. If it's someone that we have not received a request from in the past 3 years, I did not send a letter to them. Typically because they've told us we don't need money, so I didn't send it out to them. There is 2 entities that are very good at sending in their letters, but for 2 years have failed to come before full council and request them, so we have not paid them out. So it would be my opinion that if we do that again, or if they do that again, maybe we consider not putting them into the budget and then use contingency at that time if you want to, or just say, sorry, you missed out. There were 2 new entities that had contacted and asked if they could be part of that. One had come before this committee before out of Gregory, and the other one is another local business that has a nonprofit attached to it that asked if they could submit for possible funding as well. Again, with that letter, they also get a copy of what our donation policy is, and they have to provide all the information. If they don't provide it, then it doesn't even come before you guys.
Have we gotten any closer to writing actual grants rather than donations?
Last time I did anything with it was last year budget, and at that time it was a let's wait and see, and so I have not done anything more with it since then. It's definitely something I can look into on the grant side. It's possible, lots of cities do it, so it is possible, and then that helps us with the issue of here's just a donation, do whatever you want to with it. If it's an actual reimbursement grant, like what we're held to, then they would have to follow our standards. Like it has to be used for payment for the building that you're in. It has to be used for ABCD, or you have to send the money back to us. The other thing that I've started looking into is the potential for scholarships. And finding out where we want to go with that is something that we've talked about on the HR side quite a bit.
Cities can give scholarships.
Yeah. Yep. So it'd be very similar to what the state has right now, that Dakota Build, or Build Dakota. So we could do something similar for some of the programs that we have. What you can do then is ultimately you enter into a contract with that employee that states that as long as you work for the city for so many years, we will pay this in full. And then if you do not, or you quit, or whatever, life happens, then you have to reimburse up to so much back. The few cities that I've talked to that do this, they have it on a percentage. So if you say that they have to be here for 5 years after they've graduated,
20%.
yeah, so then it's just on a percentage payback if they leave at 3 years. So it's definitely something we can do. Not sure how many you want to do per department. Obviously, corrections is a much larger department, so you might want to look at more in that one. You could, and are you going to do just second years? Are you going to do first years and second years? Where do we want to go with that?
that's a little bit different than my thought process. I've mentioned it before. Several utilities offer scholarships. You know, we have a utility, our electric company, our water, whatever. If possible, I would like to see the city to offer a high school senior scholarship, $1,000, $500, whatever it is, from our utilities. Just, everybody does it. And I didn't know the city could do it.
The only ones I've heard of are the ones that do the reimbursement type of deal. I've not heard of anyone just gifting it out without any guarantee of employment after the fact. I don't know, that may be a possibility.
It's like MRES, like
Yeah.
a lot of the utilities.
One of the things that just goes right in line with what you're talking about as far as scholarships and things like that, that would also dovetail into what we want to encourage with regard to recruitment. And that is sort of target who you want or the type of future plans for education that you want to be looking for to hire. For instance, for the law enforcement center, the jail. You could certainly make a specific
I think-
way there, you know, so that they would be able to apply for a scholarship that's based on the certain academic scope that they're taking. Are you going to target it necessarily that they're gonna come work for us? No. But it's certainly part of the
But
recruitment.
you could write it to angle it towards the people that have the propensity that may want to come back and work
Absolutely.
for us in the field like that,
Yep.
without a tide of a caveat of the Build Dakota or whatever, where they, I don't know them all, but they may have to come back.
Right. Some.
We would call it Build Winter Back Better.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Hook that on.
Make winter great again.
Definitely, it's something that I've started looking into. Definitely will need some directive from council on what they want that to look like. At this time, I had only looked into the reimbursement and employment. So if it's something that you want to look into, just a generalized scholarship.
That's my opinion.
Okay, I can
I'd
look
like
into
to
see how we can do that.
Start off a little something.
Sure.
Hey, thanks for doing business with Winter, thanks for living here. It's my opinion, a little something, because, you know, we do well off the utilities and it pays the bills. Thank goodness we have them.
So-
When you go, like, when you direct it towards somebody that's gonna work here, it's almost like, because you don't know if there's, it's almost like advanced paying their internship.
It is.
I mean, I guess my thought on that is that I think that with our internships that are offered and stuff are good enough. I think it would be still, somebody that grew up here is maybe just as deserving of that scholarship, whether they're gonna work for the city or they're gonna move away. They lived here for 18 years, you know, or whatever. I mean,
As we get into that, I think it would be nice to have it maybe not so weighted on academics or whatever, because fortunately, my son was one of those kids, but those kids get all the scholarships. They just do, you know. But that's a whole nother discussion down the road.
Sure. So you guys are on the same page is what I'm hearing, to more of a generalized
yeah, I mean,
scholarship.
I'm not so directed towards making it be somebody that's gonna come work for us, I guess.
What about non-utilities? So one of the biggest groups that have asked for this is your corrections law enforcement that are not part of utilities, and they're looking for some actual criminal justice type degrees. Is that something that you guys are interested in? Because right now you're talking utilities where they've been here, they've paid utilities for their parents paid utilities for 18 years. What about those in criminal justice?
guess I'd like to hear their thought process, because I still just keep thinking it's like we're just paying them extra for their internship.
We got a whole long process that I think they're working towards, you know, recruitment and going out and I feel a lot of times you've heard me say this, I sound like a broken record, I'm sorry. We just throw money at it. When there's things that we can do to promote and recruit that is other than just throwing dollars at it. And I'm not saying it's bad, a scholarship and an enticement and whatever, but we have moving bonuses, don't we, hire on bonuses, a lot of things. Once we go through the steps and we get them here, there's a lot of things to help with that already. But not saying I'm completely opposed to it, but the
We'll
mayor
continue
seems
to-
really quiet on this issue.
Just wanted to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
I mean, I have an opinion, but I don't get to vote on it. You guys do. I have thoughts. I respect your opinions, but
I'd appreciate that, but I always like to hear your direction too.
sure,
You know.
I never even considered just an open scholarship like you'd talked about. There are several different employers in Winter that take both routes. There's one that will pay a good chunk of a student's tuition each year if you're going to come back and work for that company, and then there's just company that just award the scholarships. You're right. There's movers and shakers at the high school level, and those movers and shakers tend to get out and capture all just the open scholarships. And that's great. Those kids have earned it. They've learned that at a young age. Those are the type of kids that tend to move on to other locations. I once was a college student that, man, any kind of relief when I was going to school, when I was pursuing what I thought was going to be my educational focus, would have helped me focus on studies and becoming the best possible candidate in those fields. That's kind of what you do, is you trade a little relief in their lives while they're going to school for the first time for the opportunity to become a good student and know that you have a job to come back to. I see both working. How you fund it is totally different. You've talked about utilities in corrections. The big thing is we looked at the personal services, we will look at the corrections division. And they were down so many personnel for a good portion of this year that of the budgeted $2.5 million, and I don't know if that's the exact number, it was looking like $480,000 was not going to be used because that's how short we were, that you had appropriated for personnel. And they had talked about encumbering some of that from one year, pulling it into the next, and making it part of Build Dakota. It's an investment back into Winter. We'll see where you guys go. I don't think either are wrong. If we're creating new funding, I don't think I'm so much for that, Austin. I think I agree with you. If we're encumbering what was lost to personal wages because we're so short in an area from the year before, and we can invest that into, we talked about public works operators in the water and sewer department. SDSU's got a wonderful program up there for those two programs. And do we take and encumber back and then put it into a scholarship that was already once appropriated, and now you're just reinvesting in it to a scholarship going forward with the right candidate? I think that's for the public works director and water supervisor to identify that candidate. Over the years, I think there were 2 that have been identified, and then once they got to school, I think we said life happens, and they ended up going a different direction because they had to scramble, and we've all had to. It's just an interesting thought process. It's something we've never explored as a municipality to bring back the assets to the community for the long term. I talk about continuity of departments. And you get that right one, get the modern training in there, bring them back, get them into the workforce. And then hopefully someday they can take over the department because of that investment, or elevate to a level where they can improve that department. I like your idea, Jeremy, of just an open scholarship, of giving back to the community. I have no problem with that either.
The scale of dollars on that is way smaller than what we're talking about
Yeah.
on the other side.
Yeah.
And maybe it's something that you eventually can do both up to.
Yeah. Interesting. But the one thing that I've always said is, growing up, started when, that was a long time ago for you and I, Jeremy. Austin, not so much. He's a lot younger than us. But the comment that I've heard over and over and over is the youth are our future. And there's some things out there, but us as a community, this is an opportunity to back up what we're saying and invest in our youth and give them a future. The youth are our future. So that could go sideways too. I've seen it go sideways in different areas. You got to be careful with it. Very careful, especially taxpayer dollars. Good conversation, good thoughts all the way around.
On the HR side, we talked about this in personnel too. What we're doing right now, I'll use water sewer as an example. Water has 3 full-time employees, sewer has 1 part-time employee. So if one person leaves and it happens to be that sewer employee, then it's all over the board. And so what we started doing 3-4 years ago with public safety commissioner and public works director is taking it out of all the departments that they're involved in that we can. So Rhonda sat down and she figured what it would look like for those departments to, whatever they have for employees, split it evenly between the 2 departments. And it's only 2 departments. So water sewer being one of them, street sanitation being one of them, park cemetery being another one. Park cemetery was a huge difference because we'd never paid our summer kids out of cemetery, but they're both out of general fund, so it's fine the way it is. You're not spending any more money in the general fund, you're just moving where it's paid out of. Water sewer is probably the biggest difference between enterprises, because like I said, you had 3 full-time, 1 full-time. That's a pretty big difference in there. So, but with what we've done with our utility collections, I think we'll be fine in sewer to split it that way. So that way it makes projecting a little bit easier too when you're looking at it and you see, like this year we went 5 months without anyone in sewer. So then you're trying to project it out and you're basing it off of this 1 employee that was gone and you're like, well shoot, sewer's doing fabulous. Well no, sewer just doesn't have an employee right now, but yet everyone's working in sewer.
So what,
Go ahead.
since water guy and sewer guy is required the same.
Yep, there's no difference,
Why do we have it lopsided to have 3 underwater and 1 under sewer?
because that's how we always did it.
That's
So
what I was wondering.
previous-
Why don't we even it up?
Yep,
The history of the departments, where there used to be a supervisor for each of those departments and an employee, so many employees under there. I think in 2010, maybe it was 11, they started splitting duties and working departments together. So you went from 2 supervisors to 1 supervisor. They've really not just brought the employees together like this is going to do, where they're working in both. They still maintained a little uniqueness where there were 3 still identified as water and 1 as sewer. But the reality is we've merged 2 supervisors into 1. The 3 employees in the 1 are working as a team of 4. And
and part of it too, it was manual. You had to manually pay them out of each department. Now it's just a simple click of a button and every payroll, it splits it evenly between the 2 departments.
Yeah, and it's just shuffling money.
Right,
It is.
it is.
They're required, the job description's the same.
All it is a shuffle of money. My biggest concern was sewer and if it would be able to support, 4 half employees versus 1 full-time employee. Because there was a while, back in 15, 16, 17, you were transferring money into sewer because you were
Every year.
spending so much on the lift station lagoon projects. So now that sewer's finally making money again. So I do believe sewer can support it itself to do that. So if you look at it, you're really, 4 half employees versus 1 full-time employee, you're looking at 2 full-time employees, so you're adding 1 full-time employee, kind of. So it'll all work out. It's just going to look very, very different if you're comparing one year to the next, because what was $89,000 might now be 100 and some, plus thousand, maybe 200,000 with the increases in there. We are budgeting for health insurance at 7% increase. Last year it came in, they told us it was going to be 5.5%. They, according to them, over some Bloody Marys, got it narrowed down to 5% and took some money back in from some investments to lower that increase for people. But healthcare has gone through the roof all over. 5% was probably the lowest you saw across the nation for health insurance increase. So I could definitely see it going up to that 7% very easily. The other side of things on the insurance world, property insurance is a guaranteed, they've already told us, 7% increase on property insurance. The rest of the others insurance, probably 3% in there-ish. So we'll see a little bit of an increase on our insurance side. Property insurance, I guess I don't know what all you do, Jeremy, in insurance, but do you deal with property insurance?
That's what I do.
Oh, okay, perfect. So have you seen a large increase in property insurance rates?
It's gonna get worse.
Yep.
Companies are getting killed.
Yep.
They're continuing losing money and
Yep.
they're not gonna continue to lose money.
Yep.
And the way they do it's by increasing rate.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and it's just, I can talk about this forever, obviously, it's my job, but it's just not local. We think, the whole United States, because insurance companies have reinsurance, and those reinsurance companies are getting killed by a forest fire in Oregon or whatever, and their reinsurance is getting hit on that, which causes our premiums here to go up because of those out there getting killed, and it's just, there's just a lot of claims.
I see a lot of companies being more choosy who they're insuring now too,
Oh,
and they're
yeah.
rejecting.
Companies are pulling out, they're leaving South Dakota because they're getting killed by wind and hail, and it just,
We had 2
California,
horrible
because of the
storms.
forest fires,
Yeah,
they had a
they-
big insurer pull out.
Unfortunately, insurance is a necessary evil. It is. I fully admit that, but you are not gonna see premiums come down. They're going to continue to go up, unfortunately.
So you'll see those increases on the budget. Obviously, I do have property and everything split out per department. If they are planning to add anything next year, I have asked our department heads to make sure and let me know so that I can get some semi-quotes on what that will be in order to ensure that. Same as what we did last year when we were talking about purchasing the transfer station. We called ahead, asked our insurance, what would you quote us at next year? So they added a little bit on because of that in order to have the city be insured through this. So right now, because we are running the transfer station, we have the primary insurance on it, even though technically Tripp County still owns it. Now, we have the same coverage carrier as Tripp County, and so that came up. Tripp County said, well, I don't want to be paying double. If they're paying it and we're paying it, how do we make this work? So City of Winter is the primary insurance carrier on it, with Tripp County listed as the default if something happens to that building while they still technically own it. So we do have that covered. The equipment that's out there is under our name as well because we're the ones owning and operating. Well, we don't technically own it, but we're the ones operating it. So hopefully that'll all be solved in the next couple of weeks. We'll know exactly where we're at with things once we find out about that grant and can move forward from there. Otherwise, once I get these numbers, there was a couple things I found when I was entering the personal services that I wanted to double check. Rhonda's working on double checking that for me today. Once I get those numbers, I can plug it into our work comp spreadsheet, get our work comp plugged in. I can get the insurance numbers taken care of. I was waiting on some answers back from a couple of people, and get those plugged in too. So then we'll have all of that information plugged into the spreadsheets. Because of what Encode can allow us to do, the spreadsheets look a little bit different than what our worksheets looked like previously. They have the entire GL number listed out, the description of that GL number. It has 2021 budget, 2021 activity, 2022 budget, 2022 activity, 2023 budget, and then where we're at currently through the year on that 2023 budget. There's a few things on the revenue side that I've kind of gone through and highlighted, and the mayor and I talk about this when we go through revenues. There's some that are not a monthly payment. Well, for instance, I get a monthly payment on property taxes, but my two main checks on property taxes are in May and November. So you're almost at 50-ish% on your property tax come June once you receive that May check, but not quite. You get quite a bit more in November when everyone is paying it all off in full in November. Yes, you're supposed to split it up evenly, but not everyone does that. So then you're paying some fines and penalties on that or is it October?
No, it's November.
Okay. And then, of course, we're a month behind when we receive it back from the county. FYI, this is coming up, there is a summer study on counties and how counties can receive more funding. One of the items that is on that summer study is potentially counties charging an administrative fee for property taxes to both schools and cities. Right now, the state charges an administrative fee for collecting all the sales tax and sending it back out to cities. So they're looking at basing it similar to that. Don't know if it'll go through. I'm just letting you guys know it is a summer study that they're looking into for next year's legislation. And seems
I can't
fair.
fault them for that, in my opinion, because the county has very few ways of raising income.
And the state's administrative fee on sales tax is minute. I mean, it's a couple $1,000s a month on our $200,000. So I don't know what percentage the counties would be looking at. And I would say a couple $1,000s is probably the highest I've seen that administrative. Just depends on how much we're bringing in. It is a percentage of it. So just something could be out there. Not sure if it will, just looking at different things.
They'll probably want to give us a break though, I imagine.
I'm sure.
Stair
Yes.
step it or something.
Yeah. It seems fair if they do it for both schools and cities, since that's who they're and townships too. I mean, they're collecting for their townships too, so I don't know. It's a lot to go through to figure out, but just FYI. And that summer study is public, so they are being live streamed if anybody wants to watch those when they come up. I do have the fuel reports for 2022. We'll semi-base our fuel off of that report, but one thing that we've talked about is potentially adding in, similar to what Sioux Falls does, so many snow events. So unfortunately, the majority of our snow events happen in December, which we didn't pay for or really work through until January. So it won't be on this 2022 report. So it's definitely something to look into on the fuel. I'll let you know what their usage was per department, but some of those departments, namely streets, might be asking for a little bit more than that based off of this winter, that they had a lot more fuel usage in January, February because of snow events. And looking into, so what Sioux Falls does, they budget their normal budget, and then they also add in there an additional 6 snow events. I don't know that that's what we want to do. This was a pretty major year for snow events, and I think we had 3 major snow events. So I don't know that you want to do 6. Obviously, Sioux Falls has a little bit more money to play with than Winter does, so.
Their definition of a snow event may be different than our definition
Agreed.
of a snow event too.
Yep. And they have a lot more streets to take care of, and so, I mean, it's something that Kelly has asked and has said that he's interested in, and I think I know at one point in time Troy and I had talked about it too.
I think contingency also takes care of that.
Out of streets, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are you able, as part of that review of the fuel usage, are you able to convert it to gallons used?
Yes.
As opposed to dollars?
Yes, 100%, yep. So dollars is a little bit easier. You'll see dollars in your expense report. I'm basing it off of gallons.
Good.
And then
good.
getting kind of an average of where we're seeing the fuel prices at, plus
Yep.
if there's any projections out there that it'll be higher or lower next year. So that's kind of what basing that off of. And that's what we did this year, off of a drought year. So maybe not the greatest budget this year on that side, but it's definitely something. But the same thing happened in our utilities. Propane, the city of Winter used $10,000 more in propane in the first 5 months of the year than they did all of last year. And that's all over. That's our jail, that's our airport hangar, that's any place in winter that uses propane as a heating source. We used a lot of propane to heat this year. Because January, February, and March were so cold. And December, because we paid December in January. But,
While
yeah.
we're talking finance and budget, I still want to bring again, talking about these payments coming back a little bit. Keep on the forethought, ladder truck.
Yeah,
We just need to keep that on our mind, otherwise we're gonna be 3 years down the road and get bit. We just need to continue trying to work towards a plan on that.
legislation last year on the state side approved for more funding for fire departments, especially volunteer fire departments. So that's something that we could.
Grants
Yes.
towards it.
Yep. So definitely something, I haven't looked further into that. I kind of left that to Justin. So if you want me to look further, I can. That was something that,
We had talked last year, and I've mentioned this again, we talked last year about setting trying to set up a sinking fund possibly, but then we had to cut it because our budget got too tight. But I would say at least try to build that in if we can.
so you're wanting an outlay then?
Whatever
The
you call it. I
5-year
call it a
outlay.
sinking fund,
Yeah.
you call it 5-year outlet, it's the same
Something
thing.
that builds
Yep.
over time. Yep.
The other thing with these, so right now you guys know that contingency is in the general fund. After doing quite a bit of studying and asking some questions, the state law does say that you can do a contingency in each fund, as in your general fund and your enterprise funds. Doesn't make sense to put a contingency into your specialty funds because those don't make money, so specialty funds are excluded, but your enterprise funds and your general fund, obviously, we're already doing that in the general fund. What it would be is 5% off of that total budget then. So 5% of your general fund, 5% of your electric fund, water fund. So the reason this was brought up is, as you guys know, if it's in the budget, and they follow the bid laws, then they can buy it. Well, some questions arose, well, that kind of, how do we control then what's getting spent? Because they told us it was for this, but they bought this type of deal. Contingency is the way to do that. It is not hard to move contingency. It is a council motion to move from contingency into that, and it does not go into their bottom line. So they can't say, well, I've got 100,000 in contingency, so therefore my bottom line has this 100,000, I can do whatever I want to with. No, it's the same as the general fund contingency. It can only be touched if you as council motion to move it. So let's say electric, because we've talked a lot about transformers and electric. Let's say you give them $100,000 contingency in electric. He finds transformers all of a sudden available. He wants to get them.
But it can only be 5% of his budget line.
Correct, yep.
Which in his department, that's, what, a $4 million budget, you're looking at $200,000 in a contingency.
So in order for him to buy those transformers, he can't say, I've got this 100,000 in my bottom line. No, he doesn't. Contingency is
And
separate.
he has told us that you look at them and it may be 2 years out before you can get them.
But he's also said that once in a while, he gets an opportunity from a dealer or wholesaler. I've got these available. Do you want to buy those? And I think he would jump at that opportunity if you guys would work with him. And that gives you the opportunity to listen to the discussion and make an
I
action.
like, I like having contingencies, you know. Especially if we have our budget of 2 million. Instead of maybe throwing on another 200,000 on top of it. In some cases, maybe that's what you do. Sometimes, some cases, maybe you pare that budget down a little bit and hold a little more of that money in contingency.
I would think during the budget process that supervisors will be more compelled to bring you actual hard numbers in plans. And if it looks like it's just being cobbled together, you can say, well, all right, well, we'll just build that into contingency until you have a solid plan. Talk to us when you have the solid plan. There are some things that are pretty dialed in, and then some that aren't. And that's where, according to state law, once you've appropriated it and it's gone, that allows them to move freely within their budget, within the spending limits. This allows you a lot more control on taxpayer funds. And that is the correct way to do it. Force them to come back. It has to be public, a public request in a public meeting where you guys would discuss it and transfer it. Everybody knows what's going on at all times. I like it.
That transfer is full council,
It is,
no matter the dollar amount.
correct.
I'm, again, a broken record. And you've heard my spiel 23 times probably, and this is gonna be 24.
Why 23? Why not
It's a
21?
fairly accurate random number. And this will be 24. I still like it when Curtis or whoever comes to a committee and says, hey, I got a chance to buy these transformers, you know, and the committee says, yeah, we've got contingency money set aside, let's send it to full council. And then when you get the full council, the 2 committee members already have knowledge about it, have already had an hour conversation about why, for, how come, what's going on. And then the other 4 people can lean on them, and it takes less time in the council meeting, and people are just more informed. Once again, continuing on with the committee structure, why it's important.
No, me for the 25th time. I totally agree with that, and that's why we structured this way. But I totally understand the Constitution, and when it comes to the operations, once you've went through the budget process, Curtis, if you've appropriated to that fund and he's got the funds, he's an officer of this, well, he's a supervisor, but Paul, Troy, Justin, and Shander are officers of the city, and they need to be able to move, especially in this time of crisis with supply chain issues, manufacturing issues. That constitutional right for those officers is to make the best decision they can financially with what's appropriated to move. Sometimes government can be cumbersome, and that's why they put that in, to speed up that process, which may only be available for a week. It's a checks and balances. The part of the balance in what we've done in this last year is the contingency, and that will be your checks and balances as we go forward. It does allow that, but there are times these guys don't have the time. They have been hired to do a job in the best interest of the public, and they don't have the time to go through committee 2 weeks later, getting it out. They need to move and make a decision. There are parameters in which they're boxed in, and they can't, I mean, the spending limits, we get to the bid limits and the quote limits, but they have to go. And sometimes you and your profession, you're called to make decisions immediately in your local office. And professionally, you've been empowered, Austin, by your employer to make the best decisions possible for his company. And that's what these guys are empowered to do at times also. Checks and balances. I totally agree with what you're saying. I really am very comfortable with where we're at. Now, pendulum coming back the other direction is now we have contingencies in each funds, and I
That
really,
was the example I was using.
Yeah.
The transformers.
I agree.
You know, we have a contingency fund.
I look
there.
forward to seeing how this budget process rolls out this year. We're too far behind for what's coming. This should have started first part of April, or first part of May. We're 2 months behind. And especially with what's coming. And I know this year's, we were talking Public Works. This is their biggest year ever with what they're trying to accomplish in the city of Winter. They are under a lot of stress. They've never done this many projects. We've got rollover projects left from last year that they're working on. Finance department, basically launching new accounting software, new HR payroll software. I mean, across the board, the city of Winter this year, oof, we are being pressed like never before. Next year won't be this busy, but it won't be an off year. I mean, we can't let them have an off year. We have to keep moving forward. It was funny, I'll say this transparently. We had somebody who used to budget for 2 busy years and then an off year. And I'm like, what? We don't get an off year in the city of Winter. The public expects things every year. Well, we just need to give the guys a break. And I'm like, don't necessarily need to be going 125 mile an hour. We can be going 98 mile an hour. But there is no off year. I look forward to this budget with you guys. I really do. I think it will be an interesting discussion in a lot of these committees, and I think everybody knows their authorities now and what their duties are, and this will be good. I'm excited.
Do you guys have any questions on the budget?
I think we need to get to alcohol letters.
That's just an informational. I gave you the letter. So this I mentioned last night, that every establishment that has an alcohol license, whether it's on-off malt beverage, whether it's an off sale or an on sale, everyone received this. And it's just notating where they can find the rules in state statute, specific rules in state statute, telling them, and Paul and I talked with Justin about this before we handed them out, telling them that if their employee, when the established owner is not there, feels that they can't get someone to leave that needs to leave, they can call law enforcement. Law enforcement will help them, and they don't need to feel nervous to do that. Actually, one of the establishments posted this, right, because we encourage them to share this with their employees. One of the establishments posted this next to their clock-in, and the employee called already and said, hey, this is awesome. Thank you that we now know that we have this backup for us. And so Justin informed us that local law enforcement is doing walkthroughs through each establishment, and so far I've had no kickbacks. One other thing that is in there, an establishment is allowed to serve and sell on Mondays, Sundays, Memorial Day and Christmas Day in the city of Winter.
What about on election day? That was-
Definitely on an election day.
Yeah.
Well, in Nebraska, you used to not be able to drink on
Oh.
election day.
So South
Years ago.
Dakota
South Dakota, you can.
only,
Always in South Dakota.
As far as I recall, yeah.
I've never heard of it not being on
Yeah,
election.
bars
day.
used to be shut down on election day in Nebraska. I don't know if they still are, but that's
Wow.
what that was.
You guys are serious about your politics. The only ones I was aware of were Sundays for off sale and Christmas and Memorial Day. In 2018, the state did change that they will allow those dates to be open, but local government ruling can make it so that they're not. In 2018, council changed our ordinances to just follow state statute. So there was questions, received some phone calls asking, hey, how come this person is selling on Memorial Day? Well, because they can. Actually found out, the Department of Revenue had it on their website that you couldn't, so they needed to update their website.
Their website wasn't
I
updated.
thought it was great that the city of Winter is the one that lets them know they're not up to date.
So anyways, when I called them on it, and she goes, I don't do the website. She sounded like me. I don't do the website. That's somebody else's problem. So anyways, she was letting them know. They are working on our malt beverage renewals, and so they renew, the end of this term is June 30th, July 1st. They'll have them in their establishments for those new malt beverage licenses for that renewal. Yeah. Questions on alcohol?
No.
Constitutional debt load, 63.72% at the end of this year. That was a great question. Because we were sitting at 88, I think, at the start of this year, right?
We were in the 70s at the start of the year. It's gone down about 10%
Wasn't that long
each
ago, we
year.
were close to max.
We were maxed in 2018.
We were over max, actually.
So what we did, when we were applying for our bond for the jail, we didn't have the most current year, official current year's taxable value. We went off of what the county assessor at that time and county auditor, this is what we're projecting it to be. Well, when it came in official numbers, it was actually less than what they projected, so that actually technically put us a few thousand over our debt load, which was fine, because we had a letter from them stating that this is what we think it is, so we didn't get in any trouble for it, but it did push us over our threshold.
We were at 112. Is that what you thought?
I was thinking 1.7, but something like that.
Yeah.
So I will be clear and transparent in my opinion, once again, and going back to the 3B tax, and I've stated this in the past, I was on the council when we dismantled the pool and we're working to pass a 3B tax, and at that time when we had our telethon, people in the community had the telethon, the question was asked, when the pool's paid for, will the 3B tax go away? And my answer at that time was no. When you add a tax, most times taxes never go away. Council at the time, when the pool's paid off, can choose to get rid of it, but I don't see that happening, my opinion, sitting right here. And I can't speak for whoever may be here at the council at that time, but just having thrown that out there. That's all I got.
Austin?
I don't have anything.
Good discussion, good information. Let the process begin.
Did all of you, so there was some confusion, I don't know, one councilman said that they weren't getting their emails when I send them out. But are you getting your emails? So I sent revenues yesterday.
Yeah, I get it in my office.
Okay. Are you getting yours? I'm not sure how that worked because they got the agenda and I used the same emails for the agenda. I mean, I just have a group set. So I would assume, but maybe it goes to spam every once in a while for you guys, so. I don't know. If you ever hear that I've sent an email out and you don't get it, please let me know and I'll do my best to make sure you get it somehow.
Sometimes the time it went out, like on Friday last week, I looked at the agenda and then claims came out after.
So that was something that we had talked about years ago because Holly, whoever is in the accounts payable position works on that claims list up
Till
until
5
5 o'clock on Friday. A lot of times I have the agendas done, the packets done well before then. Sometimes not so much, but I try to have them done beforehand. Now that it's going out via email and bookmarked, maybe I will wait for that so that the claims is in with your agenda packet. So that's something, I don't know, what are your thoughts? Then you're not looking at two different emails.
I
But-
like it. It's kind of like what I asked you about last night, the new hires, the
Yep.
resignations, the fuel bids, all being attached in bookmarks.
So I've never put fuel bids in the packets before because it was always just part of a report. So then I just read it off of my email. But if you guys want me to be printing those off and putting them in there, I'll still have to read them off so that they're in the minutes. Same with new hires, have to be in the minutes, so I have to read them off. So if you'd like me to start including them in your packet, I can absolutely do that. That's not a problem. I know that you guys already get them beforehand because they go out in your emails each week, but I am still required by statute to print a public copy of the agenda, and if any news source requests a public copy, I am required to print one for them. So I do still print. I actually print 3 copies right now because Chelsea does not. Well, she does have an iPad through the city, so I shouldn't be printing Chelsea's anymore. She should be receiving hers via the iPad as well. So Dan and Public would still receive printed because they've requested. Otherwise, everything is all on email now.
PDF.
So I did see Michael came in today, so if you guys want to take your iPads over to him and have him put your emails on there, and then
Where's Michael at?
room 119, just right across the hall here. Yep. And then when you're done with that, if you'll step over to my office, I'll put Adobe on there. Adobe is what puts the bookmarks on
You
there.
already did that.
Oh, yes, I did. Okay, I can put it on yours, Austin.